of Hillary Clinton, of Bill Clinton, those who just spoke at the Democratic convention to exalt and send forth Kamala Harris, and more. We're going to have an amazingly precise revelation to open up. First, send this video to anyone and everyone in your life that needs to see it and hit like. Second, to make sure you get and don't miss the prophetic messages that I'm going to be putting on this channel, hit subscribe now. And the update, the day is almost here. The Dragon's Prophecy is going to be coming out in about 1 week or less from this posting, coming out September 3rd. It's going to be explosive. It's going to open up mysteries that may reveal exactly what's going to take place, exact events, and the exact timing when they will take place. How do you get it? You can order it, a copy for yourself or for those in your life. Right now, just go online wherever you get books and you'll get it. Pray that God powerfully uses it. Last thing, to get free gifts, see all my messages and teachings, to be part of God's end time purposes, just remember Hope of the World and go to hopeoftheworld.org. Stay tuned to the end for more, a secret I never revealed. Donald Trump. He's been the dominant single figure of the American political realm for the last several years. People hate him, people love him, but you can't ignore him. We are right now standing on the eve of a critical election that's going to determine America's future. Do we have a biblical clue? God speaks through his word. Is there a template in the Bible that gives us revelation into this moment? Ancient Israel had known of God, but then it fell away into apostasy. It turned away from the ways of God, the laws of God, drove him out of its public squares, turned to other gods and idols, took up sexual immorality, offered up its children as sacrifices, and increasingly persecuted those who stayed faithful to the ways of God. It is now America. That is the nation that has known God, but turned away from him, overturned his ways, driven him out of its public squares, turned to other gods and idols without mentioning what they are, embraced sexual immorality, offered up its children as sacrifices in abortion. And now it's on the eve of persecuting those who uphold the ways of God. The amazing thing is the leaders and events of Israel's fall from God match up with the leaders and events of our nation, and the parallels are striking, even stunning. They give us revelation. The leaders are each following an ancient prototype. I first wrote about this in the book called The Paradigm, but after I wrote it, the mystery continued to unfold and come true. In the biblical template of 1 Kings, a king rises to power in the northern kingdom. He inaugurates a culture war. The king's name was Achav, or Ahab. He was a divided man, a compromised man. He knew of God, but he warred against the ways of God. He championed the worship of Baal, which meant child sacrifice and sexual immorality, and the overturning of biblical absolutes and traditional values. So too, in America, a culture war began. The term was coined at the same moment that a man rose to power. His name was Bill Clinton. He was at the center of the culture war. Behind Clinton is the paradigm of Ahab. Ahab was a divided man, known of God, but had fallen away, warring against his ways. So Clinton was a divided man. He had known of God, but he had fallen away. He was warring against the ways of God. Ahab championed the worship of Baal, and with it, child sacrifice and immorality. Bill Clinton would be the first president to champion the killing of children in abortion. How long was Bill Clinton on the national stage? When did his rise to power begin? His time on the national stage began when he became governor of Arkansas at the start of 1979. And it ended with the end of his presidency at the start of 2001. That comes out to 22 years. In 1 Kings, it is written, Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years. 1 Kings 16:29. The years of Bill Clinton followed the years of King Ahab and were determined by his ancient prototype. But Ahab wasn't alone. He reigned in a co-regency with his wife, a woman who sought power for herself. His wife was named Isabel. We know her as Jezebel. She grew up with cosmopolitan values, the daughter of the priest of the goddess Astarte. She worshiped female power. So Hillary Clinton took on liberal cosmopolitan values, worshiped female power. The ancient Queen Jezebel saw traditional values as obstacles to be stamped out, and biblical faith as something to wage war against. So she would war against traditional values and would incite her husband to do the same. Behind Hillary Clinton is the paradigm of Isabel or Jezebel. So she too would see traditional values as obstacles to be stamped out, biblical faith as something to war against. She was quoted as saying, "Deep-seated religious beliefs must be changed." She too would war against traditional values. She would incite her husband to do likewise. And as Jezebel was the chief advocate of Baal worship in Israel, which involved child sacrifice, so Hillary Clinton was the chief advocate of abortion in America. In fact, Planned Parenthood named her the abortion champion of the century. The days of the king and queen were not only of apostasy, but of scandal. It's written that Ahab coveted the vineyard of a man named Naboth. But Naboth would not give up his vineyard, so Jezebel came up with a plan. She had Naboth falsely accused and killed. So Ahab and Jezebel were involved in a scandal involving real estate, and involved the death of a man who was the keeper of the real estate that they obtained, Naboth. A vineyard is a garden of fruits. Naboth's name means fruit. It matches the land that they were questing for. So too, the Clinton years were filled with scandal. One of the most famous involved real estate. It was called Whitewater. It involved the death of a man who oversaw the real estate. His name was Vince Foster. As Naboth means fruits, matching the land he oversaw, the vineyard, Whitewater, the name of the land involved in the scandal, was forest land. And what does Vince Foster, what does Foster mean? It means keeper of the forest. The name of the man who died matches the land he oversaw. But the greatest scandal of the Clinton years was the Lewinsky scandal. It would lead to Clinton's impeachment. The fall of King Ahab was linked to the tribe of Levi. He would break the Levitical law, and he would die in the city of the Levites. The fall of Ahab was linked to the tribe of Levi. From the tribe of Levi comes the name Levin. From Levin comes Lewin. From Lewin comes Lewinsky. Lewinsky means from the tribe of Levi. So the fall of the American Ahab would also be linked to the tribe of Levi. When was Ahab's scandal exposed? In the 19th year of his time on the national stage. Clinton entered the national stage in 1979. The 19th year of his time on the national stage comes out to 1998. When was the scandal exposed? In 1998, the 19th year. Clinton entered the national stage in January of 1979. That brings the 19th year to January of 1998. When did the scandal break out? It broke out in January of 1998. Bill Clinton was sworn in as governor on January 20th, 1979. When did the scandal break? On January 20th, 1998, the 19th year to the exact day. After Ahab's scandal was exposed by the prophet Elijah, he had 3 years left. 3 years after the breaking of the scandal, his reign came to an end. Clinton's scandal broke on January 20th, 1998. 3 years after the day the scandal of Bill Clinton was exposed brings us to January 20th, 2001. The Clinton years came to an end on January 20th, 2001. And there's even more. In the story of Ahab, the king makes a display of repentance, confessing his sin before returning to his old ways. 3 years after his show of repentance, a calamity befalls the nation. Clinton made a show of his repentance in a White House prayer breakfast, where he finally confessed and admitted he had sinned. 3 years later from that day takes us to September 11th, 2001, the day of calamity for the nation. It takes us to the morning of that day. The White House event began around 8:30, lasted to about 10:30. 9/11 begins in that same window of time and ends seconds before 10:30. In the biblical template, King Ahab's reign comes to an end, but people don't realize that the Queen Jezebel, continued on. She remained on the political stage. She dwelt in the halls of power in the capital city. So Clinton's presidency came to an end, but the First Lady, Hillary Clinton, would continue on the political stage. And as Jezebel dwelt in the halls of power in the capital city, so Hillary Clinton dwelt in the halls of power also in the capital city, Washington. As Senator, then Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton would attempt to become the ruler of the land. But in the template, the reign goes to a younger man. So now a younger man enters the mystery. In the ancient template, the younger man is named Joram, King Joram. In the modern replaying, his name is Barack Obama. He'll follow the paradigm of Joram. In his ways, in his policies, in the policies. See, Joram followed in the ways and policies of Ahab and Jezebel. So Obama would follow in the agenda begun by the Clintons. The reign of Joram would be known for hostility to God and to his people. The rule of Barack Obama would also be known for its hostility to God, to biblical values, and to religious conservatives. He would preside over a period of time when the nation began noticeably turning away from biblical values. He sought to force believers to pay for abortion. He became the first president to advocate the overturning of the historic and biblical definition of marriage, to light up the White House in a rainbow. He would begin the wokeification of the Army and the Justice Department, and he would be hostile in general to biblical values and to Israel. In his last days, he would let a UN resolution go forth that condemned Israel and declared that Israel's dwelling in biblical Jerusalem was illegal. During Joram's reign, the former Queen Jezebel dwelt in the king's palace. So in the days of Obama, the former First Lady, Hillary Clinton, dwelt in the White House. Obama entered the national stage suddenly, with his rise to the presidency, with his appearance at the Democratic Convention of 2004. He began leaving the public stage in the Democratic Convention of 2016. That's 12 years. He was sworn into national office as senator in January 2005, and then out of national office with the presidential inauguration of January 2017. Again, 12 years, a 12-year period. Now it is written, Joram, the son of Ahab, reigned for 12 years. 2 Kings 3:1. He was on the national stage for 12 years. Ancient Israel, the nation, then comes to a crossroads. If the house of Ahab continues in its rule, it's going to seal the nation's apostasy. All religious liberty is going to be stamped out. The word of God is going to be eliminated. The people of God are going to be persecuted. So too America was at a crossroads, culturally and politically. But in the ancient paradigm, there comes a surprise. A man whose name is Jehu, or we know him as Jehu. He will contain the mystery of Donald Trump. Behind the phenomenon of Donald Trump is a mystery that goes back to Jehu. He appears in the paradigm, in the book I wrote, The Paradigm, in the scripture verse, 1 Kings 19:16. God speaks to Elijah. It says, and Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you will anoint to be king over Israel. Then in 2 Kings 9:1, Elisha, the prophet, called one of the children of the prophets and said to him, gird your loins, take this box of oil in your hand, and go to Ramoth Gilead. And when you come there, look out for Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, and go in and have him rise up from his brethren, and carry him to an inner chamber. Then take the box of oil, pour it on his head, and say, thus says the Lord, I've anointed you king over Israel. Then open the door and run. And it goes on to say, and when he came, behold, the captains of the host were sitting, and he said, I have an errand for you, O captain. And Jehu said, for which one of us? He said, to you, O captain. Now, Jehu is anointed to lead and is prophesied over. I don't know of many other presidential figures who, before they became president, were so anointed by man and prayed over them and prophesied over them. Reagan was given a word in the mid-1970s that he'd be president of the United States, a prophetic word. But Trump was prayed over, prophesied over more than any other. Who was Jehu? The text calls the men of the council in which Jehu is sitting the Sar Hayil. Sar means prince or leader. Hayil means first forces, as in an army, forces of men, band of soldiers. But it can also mean the force of wealth. Trump was a leader, a Sar of resources, wealth, riches, but it also speaks of Jehu as a soldier. He was a captain, a commander, a general. Jehu was not a member of the royal house. He wasn't a politician. He was a fighter. Jehu was a fighter. Donald Trump wasn't a politician. He's a fighter. He fights with everyone. Jehu was not a gentle man. He was a wild man. At times he seemed unpredictable, uncontrollable. Trump, the same way. With Jehu, you never knew what he was going to do or say next. Trump, same thing. Jehu would come on the national stage suddenly. He would shake up the status quo. Donald Trump would come suddenly, shake up the status quo. Jehu began a race to the throne of Israel. Trump began a race to the White House. Now, we don't know that Jehu was a man of God or even that he knew God, but we know he was a vessel of God, an instrument of God. With Donald Trump, we don't know where his heart is with God, but he was used as a vessel of God. The biblical template reveals that Jehu had not followed God up to that point. He was on the wrong side of the culture war. He was on the side of Ahab and Jezebel. He was a commander under them, and so on the side of Baal. So he would have been in favor of child sacrifice. So Trump had not lived a godly life, and he had been on the wrong side of the culture war. On the side of the Clintons, he had been in favor of abortion. But Jehu changed, and now he fought against the side of Baal. Donald Trump changed. He warred now against that which is against the ways of God, the forces of apostasy, abortion, the killing of children. It's written in 2 Kings 9:7, "You will strike the house of Ahab, your master, that I might avenge the blood of my servants the prophets at the hand of Jezebel." Jehu was anointed to put an end to the corrupt house of Ahab and Jezebel. Trump was there to put an end to the house of Clinton. That's what he would do. When he defeated Hillary Clinton, it was basically the end of the Clinton dynasty. Jehu mounts up his chariot and heads to the royal city. On the way, the watchmen see him coming, and they say the driving of the chariot's like that of Jehu. He drives furiously, or in Hebrew, crazily. Donald Trump would drive furiously. The Hebrew to describe Jehu's driving is shigaon, which you get meshugana, which literally means crazy, or he drives like a madman. Trump appeared to lead his campaign like a madman, and yet he won. The year of the warrior Jehu's rising was the 12th year of King Joram being on the national stage. The 12th year of Obama, the modern Joram, on the national stage was 2016. So the ancient template, the paradigm, points to the rise of the warrior Trump in the year 2016. Jehu would begin his rising at the end of Joram's 12-year reign. Trump would begin his rising at the end of the Obama presidency and the end of his 12 years on the national stage. But Jehu can't fully come to power without coming face to face against Israel's former first lady. So Trump can't come to the White House without coming face to face against America's former first lady. And it says in 2 Kings 9:30, when Jehu was come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it. She painted her face, she made up her head and looked out the window. And as Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, "Has Zimri come in peace, who slew his master?" The former First Lady Jezebel is being sarcastic, calling Jehu by the name of another man, Zimri. She looks down on him. She finds him deplorable. Her personality is not like Ahab or Joram. It's one of anger and pride and vindictiveness. Well, people said that of Hillary Clinton. Trump and the former First Lady had several showdowns. As Jezebel and Jehu. As Jezebel was for Baal worship, which is child sacrifice, Jehu was now against it. In the final debate between the two, it was a stark contrast. Clinton was for abortion, even late-term abortion, and Trump was strongly against it. It looked as if Clinton was going to crush Trump, but the template says that when the one who walks in the shoes of Jehu comes against the one who walks in the sandals of Jezebel, the one who walks according to Jehu's shoes will prevail. 2 Kings 9:33 says, and he said, throw her down. So they threw her down. And so against all odds, Trump prevailed. And for Hillary Clinton, it was her political downfall. Now, amazing thing, it was actually prophesied before it happened. On the day when Hillary Clinton was to receive the nomination as the Democratic candidate for the presidency, a speech was given at that convention by a supporter of Clinton. And the theme of his speech were the words, they threw her down. He said they threw her down, but she wouldn't stay down. They threw her down as a senator. She wouldn't stay down. They threw her down as Secretary of State. She wouldn't stay. They threw her down, threw her down, threw her down. They threw her down as the First Lady. They threw her down. It goes on and on. The whole speech is really that.
They threw her down as the First Lady, but she didn't stay thrown. They threw her down as a U.S. Senator, but she wouldn't stay thrown. They threw her down as a Secretary of State, but she wouldn't stay thrown. They threw her down in this very campaign, but she won't stay thrown.
Now, if you take the words of the speech that was given when Hillary Clinton was lifted up to stand against Trump, the American Jezebel, the American Jehu, you just take the words, threw her down, and you type that into the internet, it would take you to 2 Kings 9:33, the showdown of Jehu and Jezebel. They threw her down. She was anointed to stand against the American Jehu with the words, they threw her down. The words that prophesy, that speak of the downfall of Jezebel. Hillary Clinton was on the national stage and public life for 22 years with her husband, and on her own, 12 years as Senator and Secretary of State. She left, she retired for 2 years, came back for 2 more years to run as president. So a total of 14 years on her own, 22 years with her husband. 14 years and 22 years. Jezebel was on the national stage of Israel with her husband for 22 years. On her own, 14 years. Jehu will now set his sights on the capital city, which is filled with corruption. Most concerning is a deep state occupied by the house of Ahab. So he goes there with one agenda, to drain the swamp. On the way to the throne, Jehu makes an alliance with the religious conservatives of the land. So Trump, on the way to the White House in his campaign, makes an alliance with the religious conservatives of America. Jehu specifically asks a man to become his partner in the chariot named Jonathan in his race to the throne. Jonathan is a religious conservative known for his piety and abstinence. So Trump invites as his running mate a religious conservative known for his piety and abstinence. Jehu wars against the worship of Baal, against child sacrifice, against what he calls witchcraft. Interesting, because those who practice witchcraft would have seen him as a threat. So it was not only the champions of child sacrifice with Donald Trump, the champions of abortion who opposed Donald Trump, but another group. When Donald Trump assumed the presidency, something strange took place that had never taken place in American history or across the world. There gathered witches under the moon to cast spells against him, just as witches would have been in a war against Jehu. When Jehu got to the capital city, he set out to destroy the temple of Baal, dismantle its cult. The government-supported cult of child sacrifice, he dismantled. So when Donald Trump got to the capital city, he set out to dismantle the government's support for child sacrifice abortion. Jehu pulled down the temple of Baal. The paradigm says when Jehu rises, the temple of Baal will fall. Now it turns out there has been an actual temple of Baal that has stood in the world since ancient times, surviving 2,000 years of world history. But when Jehu rises, the temple of Baal falls. The actual temple of Baal in the Middle East, standing for about 2,000 years, fell to the earth when, 2 months after Donald Trump began his rise, the American Jehu began his rise in the summer of 2015. The temple of Baal fell to the earth. Jehu rises, the temple of Baal falls to the earth. What about January 6th? Could there be a mystery behind it? There is so much controversy over this. There is so much between the parties here. Now, this is not to condone anything that happened, but to give revelation. At one point in the book of Kings, Jehu calls for an assembly in the capital city. Now, by the way, everything I'm sharing came true after I wrote the paradigm. It was a number of years after, but the template is in there. Jehu called for an assembly in the capital city. So Trump calls for an assembly in the capital city. There was in that day in Jehu's capital a great building, a great capital building, a great capital pagan temple. Well, there was in Washington a great Capitol building called the Capitol Building. It's also called the People's Temple, or the Temple of Democracy, or the American Temple. The people of Jehu in the template go down to that great Capitol building and surround it. And while proceedings are going on, well, they get ready to do something. The people of Trump go down to that great Capitol building, surround it with proceedings going on, and get ready for something. Or some of them did. In the paradigm in the Bible, at the set moment, the people of Jehu stormed the Capitol building. The biblical account reads, "Go inside." On January 6, many of the people of Trump who surrounded the Capitol building, and then some stormed it, went inside. Now, there is so much to this and what it signifies, but to say this now. When the Capitol Police announced how many they had arrested in Washington that week, the on-site of those who were part of this or stormed the building on-site, it made headlines. 80 arrested for civil unrest at U.S. Capitol and around D.C. Metropolitan Police Department arrested 80 individuals in connection with the civil unrest at the U.S. Capitol. All right, 80 people. In the account of 2 Kings, it records a phrase to speak of those who stormed that ancient Capitol Temple building. The phrase is Shmonim Ish. It translates to 80 people. 80 people. It says in 2 Kings 10:23, now Jehu had stationed 80 men outside. Now there is so much more. You see, the temple of Baal was what enabled the Israelites to sacrifice their children. America has had its own temple of Baal that enabled it to kill over 60 million children. It was called Roe versus Wade. So the template ordains that the American Jehu will be instrumental in pulling down the American temple of Baal. Again, this was in the templates in the paradigm, but this came true later. Roe versus Wade is the American temple of Baal. And Trump, the American Jehu, would do so by appointing 3 Supreme Court justices. The American Jehu pulled down the American temple of Baal. As a man who was not a politician but a soldier, a fighter, Jehu would undoubtedly have been in the line of fire, a target of weaponry. And yet he would have survived. So Trump would find himself in the line of fire, a target, and he would survive. Jehu was an unlikely leader. He was imperfect. He was mixed. And yet he was the only leader of the northern kingdom of Israel whom the Bible commends. Trump is an unlikely leader, an imperfect, mixed person. And yet in spite of that, no American president was more effective and successful in pro-life, in the cause of life, than he was. No American president or world leader had recognized Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the Jewish nation. the first world leader to do so since ancient times. The only American president responsible for the overturning of Roe versus Wade. The first American president to recognize the Golan Heights as belonging to Israel, which is part of biblical Israel. The first American president to inaugurate the Abrahamic Accords. The only American president to speak at the March for Life. He was the American president who most sought to defend religious freedom. Just recently, Trump's life was almost taken. It missed taking his life by as little as 2 centimeters. Had he not turned his head to look at the screen at the last minute, at the last second, he would have been dead. Is there anything in the template connected to this? There is. Again, Jehu was a warrior. More than other kings of Israel, he would have been especially the target of physical attack. He was commander of war, of weapons, and in the line of fire. He would have survived it. Interestingly, Jehu was also linked to assassination. He's the one who assassinated evil rulers, and he also survived. But it was now as if forces of darkness were seeking to turn that against him and assassinate him. I first revealed these things in 2017 when I wrote The Paradigm. I was led to give Jehu, thus Trump, a title. I called him, Jehu, the Warrior King. And this is what you're going to see, one of the pages, the opening chapter of that chapter where I wrote of Jehu as the Warrior King. And that's what it was called. Trump, I wrote of as the Warrior President. But I never heard of Trump spoken of quite in those words until this summer when he was shot. And what the call that he issued, what happened after he was shot, the call to fight. That's the call of a soldier, a man of war. It was that event and that response that led people publicly in the news and on the web to refer to him as warrior. These are actual quotes. Donald Trump praised by stars as a warrior, man willing to give his life after assassination attempt. Trump just proved, these are quotes, Trump just proved that he is a pure warrior after his heinous assassination attempt. As I called Jehu the Warrior King, look what Trump was actually called on television. Trump has a warrior president mentality. The Warrior King. Is Trump perfect? Of course not. Is he imperfect? Yes. Is he a mix? Yes. Is he wild and unpredictable? Yes. It's not about him. It's ultimately about the ways of God. But so was Jehu. Again, we don't know where Jehu was at with God, but the thing is that God used him. God will use whom God will use. It's not about the person. It's about God. It's about the purposes. It's about things like life and other things. It's about the will of God. America is hanging in the balance, just as Israel hung in the balance in ancient times. In the days of Jehu, as it was then, there are gigantic differences between the stands of the two parties and the two candidates. Not about the people, it's about the issues. One, Kamala Harris, is radically for abortion, the killing of children up to the time of birth. The other, Donald Trump, is for life. One has in fact opposed legislation to protect babies born alive from being killed or left to die. One is radically for the transitioning or surgical mutilation of children and youth. The other is against that. The other is for saving the baby. One, along with her running mate, has been warned of, spoken of as a danger to free speech, and they have spoken of censoring free speech. One has sought to force Christians, Kamala Harris, to support the killing of babies forcibly, and pro-life pregnancy centers to force them to refer their people to go to abortion clinics. The other has pledged to defend religious freedom. Kamala Harris was championed and heralded at the Democratic convention to nominate her for the presidency. But the one who walked in the footsteps of King Joram, and the one who walked in the footsteps of Jezebel, and the one who walked in the footsteps of Ahab, all of who were there, they were of the house of Ahab, which saw Jehu as an enemy. So at the convention, they all vilified the American Jehu, Trump. This is all according to the paradigm. This election is critical. and will determine, for good or bad, good or evil, the future of this nation we call America. Now let me tell you something. We saw that Ahab reigned for 22 years. His antitype, Bill Clinton, was on the national stage until the end of his presidency, 22 years. Joram, we saw, was on the national stage for 12 years. His antitype, Obama, was on the national stage for 12 years. Jezebel was on the national stage with her husband, 22 years, on her own, 14 years. Her antitype, Hillary Clinton, was on the national stage with her husband, 22 years, on the national stage, 14 years on her own. What about Jehu? What about Trump? Trump is different. Most of his life was spent out of government, public life, but most of it was on the national stage, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint. Jehu was on the public stage as ruler for 28 years. So for Jehu, the key number is 28. His last year in power was his 28th year, the year 28. If Trump is reelected in the autumn as his second term, he can only serve 4 more years and no more. So the last year of the American Jehu will be the year 28, the year 2028. It'll be the 28th year. Now, does that mean that he has to be reelected? No, he has free will. America has free will to do, as do its voters, and does God's people. We all have free will. God has his will, his perfect will, his permissible or permissive will, and his redemptive will. We have a free will to pray or not to pray, to vote or not to vote. If we, all God's people, prayed and voted, America's future would be different, will be different. The rise of Jehu in ancient Israel, what did it mean? It represented a reprieve in Israel's fall from God and ultimately to judgment. It was a chance to turn back. Jehu wasn't the answer. It was just a window that opened up the answer. So with Trump. Which of the two futures will be America's future? On one end, you have a party and a platform and a candidate who are advocating the ways against God. Really, in terms of the Bible, in terms of ancient Israel, the ways of apostasy that led to judgment. You have a way that leads to judgment, the killing of babies, the going against God and his ways leads to judgment, calamity. Or the other is a reprieve for the chance of revival. What will be, which one will be America's future? What about Kamala Harris? All I will say is do not miss what I'm going to open up in the next video. Again, was Jehu the answer? No, Trump's not the answer. But God uses and provided a window for a nation to turn back. Now, the answer is not the man, the answer is not the window. The answer is what can happen through the window. Revival. That is the only thing that can save America. God allowed Trump to come within centimeters and seconds of death. Trump was within that, just right there, but God saved him. God can also save an America, a nation that is on the edge of calamity and judgment. But your prayers and your vote matter. If we don't vote, we bear the guilt for what happens. If we don't pray, we bear the guilt. Make a difference. You're the light of the world. God put you on earth for such a time as this. Impact your world. Impact your world. Touch. You have a vote. Use it. Spread the gospel. Pray for revival. If you're not registered, do it now. It's real easy. Something like vote.gov. Maybe we'll put it up. And most importantly, pray for revival, and let the revival start with you. The answer isn't a system or a party or a man. The answer is Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, the light of the world, the glory of Israel, and the hope of these United States of America. For those in your life who need to see this, those who are going to vote, or those who just don't know, send them this link and hit like to make sure you don't miss the next prophetic video on the mystery of Kamala Harris and all the prophetic messages that are going to appear on this channel. Hit subscribe. The Dragon's Prophecy is coming out within days. To get your copy, or for those in your life, go to wherever you get books. It's wherever there are books online, and you'll soon be able to get it physically. To get the Paradigm, the book that opens up this mystery and foretold these things, same thing. It's online wherever you get books. It's still coming true. And to get the free gifts, prophetic updates, the all my teachings, and more, to be part of God's end time purposes, go to hopeoftheworld.org. The link's in the description. And until next time, with the mystery of Kamala Harris and what it actually means, this is Jonathan Cahn saying, be strong, my friend. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Shalom.
To the world than meets our eyes. Another realm that's transforming our world at this very moment. Is there an ancient vision that unlocks what is really happening and what is yet to come? Is there a secret to the book of Revelation that reveals what is taking place right now? After 8 New York Times bestsellers, Jonathan Cahn now releases his newest stunning blockbuster, The Dragon's Prophecy, Israel, the Dark Resurrection, and the End of Days.